We should be live. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to MakerCast episode 24. It is. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope everyone came well into the new year and no disasters happened yet. And we have a nice cast today. Oh, I'm hearing my audio, sorry. Okay. We have James Sherman, Emily Velasco, Bleeptrack, Sabine, ZackFreedman, Becky Stern today. And for the people that didn't watch MakerCast yet, it's a small live show that's moving from Maker Channel to Maker Channel, presenting latest creations and chatting about making stuff. Okay, let's just start. I'd say next to me is James Sherman.
Hello. Okay, so I have been conducting a project for quite some time now to build a 8-bit TTL CPU from the ground up. And so I'm going to show this to you a little bit. I have shown it on MakerCast before, but it's come on quite a way since then. So I'm kind of popping on for that 6-month update because I don't really get time to do anything else. So I apologize for the fisheye on this. It's
oops, sorry.
I apologize for the
odd
face on this.
I have to find out how to enlarge you. Sorry.
That whole thing is one project?
Yes. So this is literally a CPU built from the ground up from discrete logic. So if you're used to programming in kind of assembly language, you'll be used to talking about kind of registers and RAM and maybe a pipeline. This is my arithmetic and logic unit. Now, when I last showed this, I had a lot less PCBs, and I've been gradually turning stuff into a slightly more permanent form. So that's kind of making the whole thing a little bit more stable and permanent. Now, since the last time I was on MakerCast, the pipeline has become PCBs. People who watch my channel won't yet have seen this clock PCB, which is this stuff converted down onto a new PCB here. But the kind of big additions are the devices I've been adding. So I've got a UART serial port here and an audio device. So when I added the UART, that was quite a big step forward because that meant I suddenly had kind of input and output all at the same time. So I'll give you a demo of something I did to kind of celebrate that, as long as it works. So this is the UART is connected to a regular serial terminal on my PC. So this is SNEC. It's my little SNEC. And I'm not very good at it, and I'm not going to force you to watch me play it for an extended period of time. But compared to kind of the various things I'd done before, kind of generating Fibonacci sequence and prime numbers that were kind of big milestones from a programming and processor functionality perspective, this is the one that kind of started to actually get people's attention a little bit. So even the collision works as I end the game there.
What kind of keyboard interface are you using? Is this PS2?
Oh no, this is serial terminal. So the keyboard I'm using there is on my PC. It's just sending the.
Sure. Okay. I also saw. Whoops. I also saw your video today. Was it published today? I think so. About the sound card. Can you demonstrate that?
So this is the sound device over here. So it's very simple, kind of shifted in logic to create a clock divisor. And the video today was me adding the second channel up here. So I kind of get this technical claim to being polyphonic.
Is that a little speaker right there? That black circle? Is that what
that is a little speaker right there. And this is my method of reprogramming. So my programs are just stored on ROM chips that I'm blowing with the little EEPROM programmer. So I'm just swapping out my code. I do not recommend you do this with computing devices switched on. It sometimes creates really weird results. So this is Beethoven's for Elise. So if you go from my kind of audio sub-series, you'll see there's a progression as I go from my very most basic bleeps at the start through to adding an ADSR envelope, and now I've got the 2 channels of that. I'm getting my arm twisted a bit on the comments on my videos to go to 4 channels, but I'm going to only do that on PCBs where things will take a bit less room. This whole thing kind of occupies a vast amount of space.
Are those bar graphs on the audio device below the speaker?
No, these are registers. What you've got here is you've got 12 bits of divisor, which so the clock output is divided by that to create a square wave, and then 4 bits of volume.
Cool.
Okay, great.
So the UART circuit.
Show it.
4-byte buffer circuit, which I built independently, which I'm going to be making up a couple of those on PCB to give me some decent buffering, because right now, if I receive a byte and I'm not ready for it, it's gone. But I've got the spaces here for the ALU to get turned into PCB. And the kind of big project that I'm starting at the start in this new year is a VGA display output, which is going to be where the games start to get interesting. There's a little VGA monitor on my mantelpiece back there that will be getting driven for that. Cool. So there's my update.
When is the point when you will transfer it to a PCB? So when is the point of confidence reached?
Well, I'm building it as these separate modules. So if I go here, these PCBs, if I don't find a reason to change them, are final. But these are single module PCBs. So this is individual registers. These are my address registers. These are my general purpose registers. And then I've been making up backplanes to plug them into. And when I'm finished, rather than making a PCB for the whole thing, I'll make one giant backplane and plug all the modules into it.
And okay.
I'm sorry. Is it going to go into like some kind of a case, or are you going to have it like on display? Like what is the final thing going to look like once it's all together?
My mental thinking there is wall mount.
Okay.
It's going to be a kind of multi-year journey, and I want to stick it up on the wall with a controller and a little display, which is why I bought the small VGA monitor, so I can turn it on and play a game of whatever. With the VGA display, the games are going to get a bit better than text mode Snake. I hope.
Can we have a Twitch Plays snack someday?
Maybe.
Awesome.
How do you write code for that? Like, what do you, or how do you get it onto the thing?
I had to write a toolchain, so I had to develop an assembler for it. I've got a few extra features, but I'm a way off developing a compiler for it, which is probably overkill. But all the programs that were run today and I've done before are all hand-coded assembly language.
Wow.
But I mean, the thing about this is a pipeline CPU, so the vast majority of my instructions are single cycle. I've had it clocked at 2.5 megahertz. I'm hoping to get it up to 4, but I don't want to promise that. I think it's currently running up 1 megahertz. I've got a socket for the crystal.
How did it change transferring it to PCB with the clocks? So which improvement did it bring in megahertz wise?
I'm going to be really honest about that. Not a lot, because when I built my clock circuit, I put a clock divider on it so I could change the clock rate from the crystal. I've got 3 modes on the clock. I've got single step mode where I could just push a button for 1 step. I've got my trace mode, which is a 555 timer, which everybody loves. So it can run at a rate where you can actually see the operations happening, and then the full-on run from the crystal. But I put the clock divisor on for the crystal. I put a 5 megahertz crystal in there, and my clock divider goes to up to 50% in quite small increments. And it just went all the way up there and ran at 2.5 megahertz stably. So I need to get a faster crystal and see what it can do.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure that there's a couple of issues in here at the moment which will stop me from getting quite up to 4. So I'm not tempting fate and trying it before I fix those.
What are those issues? Can you tell us quickly what they are?
If you're really interested, I had a small race condition where some control lines were being set just before the other end of them were being set. So you've got tiny glitches on the line. So if you go way back in my videos, you'll find there was a point where one of my registers would increment unexpectedly. And I put a delay on there just by looping through a few logic gates. And when I now look at it in the oscilloscope, the delay was exactly the right thing to do, but the delay I put on there was totally sensible when I was running at 20 kilohertz off a 555 timer. And when you're running at 2.5 megahertz, it starts looking like that clock is starting to bump back into the end of the clock cycle. Okay. So I need to actually work out what that delay needs to be and set it properly.
Okay. Great. Let's continue. I think was that all, or everyone?
Yes.
Everyone who's interested in James' CPU build or PC build, actually, with the new additions of sound cards and video card coming soon, subscribe to his channel. I linked every channel below in the description and all the social media, so you can subscribe to James. Emily next, I would say.
Okay. Gosh, what have I been working on? Well, the last thing I finished, which I just had a video out like 2 weeks ago, is this thing, which is going to be kind of hard to get on camera because it's big. But this is my, I'll just kind of pan it across here. This is my optical sound decoder project. So what it does is, I don't know if I'll be able to show this. Let me see if I can put the film really close here. It's going to be kind of hard to see, but if you look here on film, this is 16 millimeter movie film. There's a little strip here along the side. It's not going to be super easy to see, but there's this little line here, and that little line holds the sound information for the film. And so on old films, they do this differently now, but on old films, they recorded all of the sound for a movie optically. And a friend of mine had given me a projector, a 16 millimeter projector, and I had to fix it, and I fixed it, and I needed a film to put in it, and I went to the flea market and I found a film. The film I found had an audio track, and my projector didn't have accommodations for an audio track, so I hadn't really considered, how they put film or put audio on old films. But when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. My projector can't play this audio. Maybe I can make something to play the audio. That was last year, and I forgot about it. But this summer, actually this fall, I guess, it's already winter. I thought it would be kind of cool. I was bored. I can't go anywhere or do anything. So I thought it might be kind of cool to revisit that. And so it was supposed to be like a quick project. I really just wanted to make a little thing that I could put film in and pull it side to side, and then it would play the audio. And I did a lot of work on that. This has probably been my most logically pursued project, because usually my projects kind of just happen in a sort of a chaotic manner. I have an idea and I work on it, and then my idea changes and I do something else, and then halfway through I decide that's not what I'm doing after all, and when I get to the end, it's nothing like what I thought of at the start. But this one, it was a very logical, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And then it didn't work. And it was iterate until I got where I wanted, which was kind of fun because I don't work like that normally. But it was, I 3D printed this little thing that holds the film so you can pull the film through. And it had it had a photoresistor on one side and an LED on the other, so that as you pull the film, that little strip, that little line that holds the audio information has light shining through it. And so as the width of that line varies, the amount of light reaching the sensor varies, and then you can translate that back into sound. Well, that didn't work. Photoresistors aren't sensitive enough because, again, I'm not going to be able to show this very well, but the sound squiggles on that line are really, really tiny, like as skinny as like a hair, probably. Like, I don't know, I didn't measure, but they're very tiny. Like, I look at them with a magnifying glass and they're really tiny. And so to capture them properly, you have to have a really, really tiny gap for light to shine through. Because if you capture all those lines at once and they all, like, the light shines on all of those lines onto the sensor, you get like the cumulative additive effect of all of them. So you don't actually hear them. Like, you hear the jumble of all of them at once and the sound's very muffled. Anyhow, I had to make a really narrow little gap using razor blades. So just a little bit of light squeaks through, and photoresistors are not sensitive enough for that little bit of light. So then I had to try something else, and I tried a photodiode, and it got a little bit better. And I could start to hear things a little bit and then iterate again. And then I used a thing called an OPT 101, which a friend suggested. He's an electrical engineer. He said, this is a really sensitive light sensor. You should try this. So I tried that, and now I was getting like a good signal I could hear. And I had like decent volume, but like it still wasn't right. So I had to redesign my sensor some more. And like the trick was to get the film as close to the sensor as I possibly could, because like as the light passes through that little gap, like if you remember your physics, if you send light through a little gap, it like spreads out. It like, you know, so you want it like to not have much chance to spread out. And you could fix that with lenses, but I was trying to do this simply. So I had to redesign things, and like the little reed head was scratching the film. And so I had to put felt in there and all this stuff. But I finally got it done. And like all it does is it has like a motor here. There's a stepper motor right here. And it just pulls the film through. So like as I turn it, the film goes around, 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 and I just make little loops. And I just tape the film with Scotch tape. And it plays out of this speaker right here. And I've got a little knob for speed control. And I don't know. That's about it, I guess.
Can you show it?
Yeah, will you turn it on for us?
Let me grab the power supply for it and plug it in, and I'll show it. I don't remember which loop I have in this thing, so this is going to be a surprise what it plays right now.
It's strange. I recently watched movies and thought about the old films, and they are recorded like frame by frame. And I was asking myself, how is the sound played back? If there is a shutter used and the film is just streamed, or if it's just moved frame by frame, the film.
Right.
And then just like a few days later, I saw your video on that topic, and that was quite a cool coincidence.
Yeah. So newer film, like they do. I mean, now they're putting movies on digital stuff, but like there was an intermediate time when you'd still get if you were a movie theater, you'd still get like a spool of film, and it still has the frames, but then they'd have like little digital like markings going down the side, like at each frame, that contain the information. They look like little QR codes, kind of. So there was a little like transition period. I'm sure now you just get like a hard drive or something that has the movie on it. But yeah, the soundtrack. This is where the word soundtrack comes from, because it's the track that has sound on it. That soundtrack is outside of the frame area. Like the frames are here in the center. And you can see, like, I mean, you're not gonna be able to see it here, but if you ever look at like a picture of what film looks like, you'll see there's like a little dark line between each frame, but those dark lines don't extend out into the sound area. So that sound area just like is parallel to the rest of the film, and it's not subjected to the shutter like the actual frames are. Mm-hmm. But yeah, let me show you. Hopefully it'll work. Sometimes it doesn't, but yeah, so it does a little startup sequence with these lights. And I have this knob here. And then if I turn it to the center, it's sort of like pause or stop. And then if I go the other direction, it plays in reverse.
This is so cool.
So cool.
Oh man, that's so great.
This was pretty fun. I have an idea for another project. I have another one of the like little OPT 101 sensors, and like the hardest work on this was designing that read head. Like that took a lot of like, that was the thing that took all the iterating, was like figuring out how to make that thing work right. And now that I have like a design that works, I can just 3D print another one. And what I want to do, I had started playing around with printing my own little film strips. Like this is going to be hard to see, but like I printed this on a laser printer on like a transparency sheet. And I just made like a line pattern in Illustrator, and I printed that out, and like it does work. And so what I want to do for like a next, I want to say like the next version of this, because it'll be different, but I don't know if you guys have ever seen those. It's like a cassette tape loop keyboard, where there'll be like a little tiny like toy keyboard, right? And you'll have like maybe 5 keys, so it'll be like a pentatonic scale, and there'll be a little cassette tape like stuck to the top of it with a little tape loop inside that has a tone on it. And when you press the keys, it plays the loop, and each key plays the loop at a different speed. So you get a different note by just changing the speed that loop plays at. I want to do the same thing, but with a film loop, with these like homemade film loops. So in the next month or so, I'm going to start trying to make that thing. So we'll see how that goes. I have to go back to work tomorrow, so we'll see how much time I have.
It's so fun. I love it.
Definitely. And also, Emily, you had that super cool photo posted, I'm not sure, I think on Twitter, where you hold your device. And it has that, let's say, Asian flair. I'm not sure if that's the aesthetic you went for, but it's like so cyberpunk Asian flair and looks amazing.
Yeah, thank you. That was kind of by accident. I wanted to take like a short clip of me holding it, and I was trying to do it in the living room over here, and like the corner where I was going to do it has a big ugly air conditioner, and I had a bunch of stuff piled behind the couch, and I started moving all the things out so that they wouldn't be in the frame. And I was trying to think like, what am I going to cover this air conditioner with? And one of the things that was like in that pile of stuff was my big parasol, and it was in my hand. And I was like, oh, just like unfold this. And it was like on a whim that I put it up, but it totally worked. And now like, I liked how much that thing looked in my room that I'm working on putting it up in my bedroom. I want it to be like, I want the parasol up in the corner with lighting behind it. So I've been working on that the past few days.
Did you intend to make it look like a guitar or a sitar? We've had a ton of comments.
Right. You know, I did not. It just, I mean, as I was designing it, I realized it was going to end up taking that shape, but that was not my intention originally. It was just kind of dictated by like the needs of the project. You know, I need like film, like I forget, it's like six or 7 inches of film per second of audio. So like the loops have to be somewhat long, right? And so I needed to make it long. Otherwise I'd get like 1 second of audio to play in a loop. So it needed to be long, and I needed to like have the film go up. And then it was like, well, I need to put the electronics somewhere. So like, there'll just be a box at one end. And it just sort of started taking on this like banjo guitar looking shape. But like once I saw that was like what was happening, then I sort of leaned into it, but that was not like intentional in the beginning.
Can you add just multiple idlers and wind it like a W or something? So,
you could. And if you look at, I think it's a Mellotron, the organ that uses like cassette tape loops, basically, they do a clever thing where they sort of have like a box, and the film goes in, and it just sort of like flops all around in there, but the box is just high enough for the film to like bend. So it has to stay in one dimension. So the film gets all like curled around on itself, but it stays flat. And so that they can just like bunch a whole bunch of film in there, and it just sort of squiggles around, and you can fit like, I don't know, a few feet of it in there, and then it comes out the other side. I could have probably done something like that. I could do something like like they have in a paper mill where you'll see when they want to dry the sheets of paper, and it just goes like on a bunch of zigzags over a bunch of rollers. I could have done that. But I don't have a machine shop, so making a bunch of rollers is not like the easiest thing to do here in my little like garage workshop. So I just honestly, I grabbed stuff I had already. The little idler pulley here at the top, I think I took off of a treadmill. And the stepper motor was something that I borrowed from a friend. And like the springs were, I don't know where I got these springs from. It's all just junk that I had in my garage. So, and that's usually how I try to work, is like I hate buying things. And so like as much stuff as I can scrounge from other stuff, like that ends up shaping my projects a lot.
So David is asking, if you are creating your own tape, you could have several tracks and move playhead up and down.
I suppose you could. I mean, I don't see why not. I think it would be there. I don't think there's any technical barriers to doing that, other than that, again, I don't have a machine shop, and like machining something, like you'd have to slide the head back and forth somehow, and I'd have to have like rails for it to slide on, and like I guess I could 3D print these things, and then I don't know, like use like one of those stepper motors from a floppy drive that's got the little like spiral rod to like slide it back and forth. I mean, I guess I could do that, like, but also I could just like print out like 4 or 5 like reed heads and just put them all next to each other. I don't know. It's like on one hand, like just make a bunch of them, or like what Dave is saying is kind of like how 8-track tapes work. If you guys have ever used an 8-track tape, there's a button you press. Although sometimes there's a button to just like advance through the tracks, and sometimes you have like a button 1, 2, 3, 4, and you just press a button, and then like the actual tape inside of that cartridge has 4 tracks on it, which is confusing because they call them 8 tracks, but it has 4 tracks on it, and like the head literally just moves down, up and down on the tape. So it could be done. Do I want to? I don't know. It's a lot of work.
I have one last question. After the pandemic, do you plan to open like a museum of your own oddities? At this time, you have like a ton of things to show that are really like odd and cool and quirky.
Yeah, that's kind of a dream. I was in Portland 2-3 years ago, and I went to a museum up there called the Zymoglyphic Museum, which like I strongly like recommend to people if they have a chance to go there. But what I was not entirely expecting when I went there was that it's just a guy's house. Like, I mean, his house is set up to be a museum, but literally, like, I walked into his museum through his, like, up his driveway and into his garage. And, like, I don't know where he actually lives inside of the house. Like, he must have walled off some part of the house to live in. But, like, I walk into his garage, and the garage is his gift shop and his workshop. And he was just sitting there, and he was like, go on. And I just like went up the stairs, and it's just his house. It's like a 2-story house. I would love to do that. I've been kind of jokingly talking with a friend of mine about like buying a big trailer or an RV and making like a mobile like museum and just driving around. But I don't know, like not here in LA because I can't afford anything besides this tiny cottage I live in. But I would love to have some kind of a weird little museum of my own somewhere. It would be absolutely a dream.
Cool. Okay. Next would be Becky Stern.
Hello. Happy New Year, everyone. I made this 2020 candle specifically for the purpose of burning the year. And it brought, which is interesting. I don't usually like Emily was talking about seeing the end of your project and going there. I don't usually do that either. But in this case, it started with the end. I wanted to make something that looked like this, and lo and behold, I managed to do it. I 3D printed the mold. I have never made freestanding candles before. I've made like container candles in a jar, but molded candles, like you have the added factors of like, will it release from the mold? And will it hold its shape afterwards? And I didn't know that was going to happen with I just used PLA. And PLA is one of the lower melting temperature plastics anyway, but it's still like double the temperature of the melted wax. So I used Tinkercad because I'm not really like good enough to use Fusion yet. But it wasn't that complicated anyway. I made like the 2020 graphic in Illustrator and then imported the SVG in Tinkercad and then just extruded it and wrapped a square around it to make a mold. The trickiest part was making these like lining up channels, so the alignment, so the mold could mold halves can like register with each other. I used a piece of plastic as the bottom. I was worried of it like wasn't going to come out of the mold, so I didn't put a bottom on it so that I could like mold it on a different flat surface I could peel away. So I used just like a piece of packaging material, plastic, and hot glued the mold to it. And then I used paraffin wax because my research said that was what was going to hold its shape the best. And this candle is actually the test candle. This one is not the one I burned. I mean, well, obviously this is not the one I burned. This was my very first test, which I was like, oh my gosh, this is coming out so great. I tested like them 3 more times after this and none of them came out as nice as this one. And then so I just went back to the variables I used to create this one for the final one. But something I was interested in doing once I figured out that this 3D printing mold for the candle was going to work was to try to put something inside the candle. And a few years ago, I had received a candle as a gift called a Pyro Pet, and it's like was like a geometrically shaped cat. And then when you burned it, it had like this sheet metal cat skeleton inside it. And so I made this like Christmas ornament. It's a sheet brass that I cut with my jeweler's saw. It's a little dumpster fire. And then I glued it to the inside or the bottom and the inside of the mold when I poured the candle, so that then when I burned the candle, the dumpster fire would be revealed, but also then the flames would flicker behind the flames of this design too. So like create an interesting element so that you can have a Christmas ornament. But really it was just like, typical me trying to experiment with like multiple things in the same project, and then impossible to like know what to call it at the end. Is it a 3D printed candle? No. Is it a secret candle? I don't know. But had a lot of fun, and now I'm inspired. Somebody on the internet said that it looked kind of like a thwomp, like a Super Mario. It's like the same shape as like a thwomp. So now I'm thinking of all kinds of other candles I could make with this technique. Probably ones that are much smaller. I made this one so big so that it would fit this object, and the size of this object was kind of dictated by what's comfortable to cut by hand. Any smaller and it would just be like too much of a nightmare. So if I make more of these, I think I'll leave the surprise out and make the whole candle maybe like 1/4 of the size, since this is like 1.5 pounds of wax. And like, who needs a candle that big? Nobody.
That's cool. So you can make a candle block, Mario block, and inside like maybe a mushroom or a star or something.
Yeah.
That
sounds cool. Yeah, for sure.
But did I get this right? You could power the paraffin directly into the 3D printed mold, or did you need to put in my head, I thought you might need a silicone mold or something like that?
No, I thought maybe so too. And it's true that after like I did 4 pours with, this is the second mold, I did 4 pours with the first mold, and by the end of that testing, where I was testing the wax at a bunch of different temperatures, one of the sides started to like deform a little bit, but not a ton. And I thought that like it was going to soften the PLA in the interior of the mold so much that it wouldn't like take its shape, that it would like soften the features of it. But the mold features are still really sharp. I think it's just about the temperature. Like the melting temperature of the wax is only like 60 degrees Celsius. And the PLA is like, what, 190 something Celsius? Mm-hmm. So like I was worried about it deforming more, but I think also that can be mitigated by the design of the mold. So like I used like 20% infill and a little bit of thickness on the walls so that there's actually air in there to like help dissipate the heat. And I think if I had a repeatable deforming, this one I only made 1 candle with and it hasn't deformed yet, that maybe I'd make the wall of the mold a little bit thicker so that there's more infill, which would be more air to help relieve the heat. It does take like hours to cool. So also I think if the mold were smaller, maybe the heat absorption power of the mold would be greater. But I thought it was going to be a bigger problem than it was, and it really wasn't a problem at all.
How easy was it to demold it? I had experimented with 3D printing concrete molds back in the spring, and one of mine actually looks remarkably similar to what you have there. So it's probably just like convergent evolution. But getting the concrete, like I waxed my mold to get the concrete out, and still like even with like putting draft angles on it and everything, it was like such a pain in the butt to get the concrete out without breaking the mold or breaking the concrete.
Right, because it's stuck, right?
Yeah. So I mean, wax is maybe more slippery, but like how much trouble was it?
It wasn't trouble. It wasn't any trouble. And part of that is the design. I made sure to do a design that I could pull straight off, right? There's no, because it's not silicone, it's not going to bend. There is no peeling it off. So the design of the shape, I made sure that it didn't have any, like the sides don't have anything exciting going on, right? They're just a true extrusion, so that I was setting myself up for the easiest possible demolding by just pulling it straight off. And you can watch in the video, I didn't hide anything or make any cuts. It came out like, I don't know, I was very pleasantly surprised. I didn't have any mold release. I think part of the success was that the wax shrinks when it cools. And you can put other things in it that make it shrink even more. And so I wonder, I want to like see inside what's going on, because obviously the center of the candle cools the slowest and the outside cools the fastest. And I wonder how long it actually takes for this part of the wax to set up. And then maybe the heat mass is just in the middle. And so the high temp isn't even on the outside anymore. But there's like a little bit of where I didn't make any special draft angles or anything. So you can see it like made its own draft angles, like a little bit fell off. Not on the second side though. So maybe I should mark which side is the front and which side's the back. Because if I had done the back first, then the front would probably come out as clean as this. So I got lucky. I was ready for it to stick and to have to try something as a mold release. I've heard that for candles, you can use like cooking oil spray, like kitchen pan spray grease. And then I also have some silicone mold release that I was going to try if that didn't work, but I didn't use any mold release and it worked awesome. And it didn't even impart very much surface finish. There's like a little bit of lines you can see, but for the most part, it actually smooths out the surface finish. So that was awesome. I've had a similar experience with concrete. Like I've done a concrete molding project that never came out on public because it was a total failure. It just stuck all over the place. And like, I don't know if it has to do with how porous the material is, because like, the wax, as soon as it meets something that's cooler than it gets a lot more solid. So it can't like seep into any small holes to like grab onto. Yeah.
I found with my concrete molds, I had to first, I gave them a bunch of coats of clear lacquer to like fill in any kind of little tiny holes that the concrete could stick in. And then I waxed it really good with furniture wax, like a really, really like thick coat of furniture wax and everything. And it helped. But before I did that, like I had pieces of like concrete just like stuck to the surface of the mold that would just peel off of the concrete object. So
yeah, that's a bummer. I know I haven't found anything that's good for concrete besides silicone, which you can make with 3D printing, but it's like that extra step, right? Where you make the solid and then you have to do the regular mold making. And like, I don't have a vacuum chamber. Such a pain in the butt.
Yeah. So when you designed this, did you design the candle as it would come out and then just subtract it from the mold, or did you design it in inverse into the mold?
Well, that's the way Tinkercad modeling works, is that like you design the object can be either a solid or a hole. And so I created the object as a solid, extruded the 2020 text and put a block in it to fill in the O's, and then take that whole grouped block, toggled it from a solid to a hole, and grouped it with a larger solid block, so it just cut out the inside. Yeah.
Huh. I find it really interesting that you get to keep the prototype, but the finished project is destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the finished project exists as an animated GIF of the candle burning. which is in the, I wrote a tutorial for this project. If you can see it, the video's on my channel, and there's a link, and you can see all the steps and materials in order to build it yourself, and watch it burn, which is the most satisfying part.
What's neat is that the GIF also produces light.
Yes. Thanks for finding all my project's angles, Zach.
It's a cool project. Do you have any, like, so would you recommend this as a project for viewers?
Actually, it would. I wouldn't say I usually say that, right? Like, often projects are very torturous for the maker, and then it's like, here, do as I say, don't do as I, don't do these mistakes that I learned. But in this case, because this was my first test and it came out awesome, and then my subsequent test where I tried to change the temperature came out less awesome, I would say, yes, go ahead and try this. But make sure that when you cast the candle, you put it in a dish big enough to hold wax in case your mold leaks. Because while this came out awesome and I can vouch for the technique, one of my experiments, I didn't glue the mold all the way shut, and it leaked wax all over the place. So, like, your own technique could make a mess of your workspace, but overall, I'm like, PLA plus paraffin gives my thumbs up.
You also put the candle while it was burning into a dish or something, because the wax was like melting.
Yeah, people who know how to make candles, which is not me, can make a free. It's called a pillar candle, a freestanding candle. They can make it so that when it burns, it does not drip any wax outside. It just burns the wax off, and it's a combination of the wick material and the wick size in relation to the size of the candle, and requires a bunch of testing to get that kind of balance right. And like, this is like my first pillar candle ever, and I put 3 wicks in it, which is way too many, but 1 wasn't enough. I noticed that when I did with 1, it didn't burn all the way to the edge. So it needed a dish because it was going to make a mess no matter what. And my primary goal was to just make that fun time lapse, not to create a candle that I could sell. Because, like, it's true, if I wanted to sell these, I'd have to like do a bunch more testing to make the candle actually burn nice. Also, there's the additional factor of like, this thing gets hot and then it melts the wax next to it too, and so the whole thing
is appropriate if everything goes wrong.
That's why it's not a marketable product. It's a project you can watch it go wrong, and like the variables being messed up, and then maybe it'll appreciate the candles you do have and how someone thought about how it was going to burn the wax all the way, but not too much. So yeah, I had to catch the wax when it burned. Cool. No sense though. People were asking me if it's a scented candle, and I'm thinking to myself, first of all, not only am I allergic to most of that stuff, so no, I'm not going to make a scented candle. But the other thing is, like, what 2020 would smell awful. So like, there's no way that I'm making it a scented candle.
Can you even get garbage essential oil? Like,
I know, right? Well, okay, so I joined a candle Facebook group because that's what you do when you have a new hobby. You join a Facebook group and find out what everybody's talking about. You learn their lingo. And somebody there wanted to make a cabbage scented candle, and was like boiled cabbage scented candle. And I'm like, well, there's something out there for everybody. And that to me, it smells like garbage water. Yeah, boiled cabbage smells like garbage water to me. Like specific, maybe I have a product idea here. It's like New York City candle smells, and you have like Chinatown fish guts and like Mazpeth garbage truck cleaning facility.
So this video that you uploaded was part of a collaboration with other makers as well?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. I actually only got this idea because of the collab. The 8 Bits in a Byte channel, Nicole and Dane in Belgium, they invited me and 4 other channels to do originally it was codenamed Burn 2020 collaboration. We made it like a little bit nicer in the end, but everyone was sort of destroying a small part of 2020. Somebody made a Raspberry Pi robot that smushes clay, and somebody else, Natasha from Techno Chic, made this like wool knitted yarn mask that unravels, and like, so things are Clarissa from Make It and Fake It made it like razor blade servo tomato chopping arm. Very fun playlist of playful, just cathartic projects that you can find in the playlist that goes along with the video.
The comment section is going absolutely ballistic, suggesting things to throw into your candle to make it smell terrible.
Great. I will be sure to revisit the chat later for all of your great marketing ideas for my new scented candle line. Thank you so much.
Okay. I would say Zach next. It's a new face on, I believe, on MakerCast. It's your first time, Zach. Or what?
Yes.
Okay. So.
Yeah, I'm new here. Hi, I'm ZackFreedman, and I build stuff and put them on YouTube. I guess that doesn't really set me apart from anyone else here. Yeah, so I got serious about YouTube around around September, and things have been working pretty well.
He's being humble. You mean your meteoric rise to stardom?
Get out of here.
Zach's channel growth is insane. Congratulations, Zach.
I got very lucky, but I have a lot of there are a few folks who really who just really love what I'm doing here, and they're the ones who should get the credit. But yeah, so my 2020 didn't suck that bad. Sorry. So this is the most recent project that I put on.
Sorry.
Hey.
Sorry. This StreamYard got so annoying. I have to select this here. Okay.
There you go.
All right. Whoa, hang on. Wow. All right. So I built this glove for my last episode, and this technically detects magnetism, but we use that to detect magnetic fields. And you can see what it's seeing over here. And apparently my beard is magnetic. Huh. The beard isn't really magnetic. What it's picking up is the Earth's magnetic field as I turn it around. Sensor is called a flux gate magnetometer, and it's very sensitive. Yeah. So this is the first project of the year. One weird thing about sticking to a weekly schedule is that I have to build projects at just bananas speed. So I had to whack this thing together in a day, and I missed my deadline. It took a few hours the next day. Yeah, it's kind of funny because before, with client projects, right? I used to be a freelance prototype developer, and with clients projects, you have a little time to spread out and think things through, pick good materials, do a few iterations. With this, it's first thing, figure out what it looks like so you can get things 3D printed. Immediately build electronics, write the code, slap the thing together. Hopefully, and then you get one final do-over to reprint stuff and rebuild stuff so I can get photography. And that's it. So it's pretty interesting. There's just no room to there's no room to get carried away on a project anymore. Kind of takes the fun out of it, you know?
I know the feeling.
Yeah. Wearable Devices kind of got the channel off the ground. This was, I revised it in one of my videos. But yeah, so I figured the best thing to start off 2020 is by turning myself into a cyborg. Originally, I was going to do you guys get a little behind the scenes stuff. I was originally going to do some projects to tie in with Cyberpunk 2077. But then the game actually released, and I just friggin' about-faced that one. A lot of people have suggested just get a magnet implant, right? First off, I'm not sticking anything in my finger. I need these fingers. Second off, I tried to make this clear in the video, but this is designed to detect DC. A magnet implant is much better at picking up AC because it causes the magnet to vibrate back and forth. You can pick that up. If it's DC, you have to know first off, you know there's a wire there and move your hand over it. But also, it needs to be carrying a lot of current, or you need to have your full concentration on it. It doesn't let you passively sense things just by touching them. Yeah, man, the number of YouTube commenters that want me to shock myself or stick things in myself or catch myself on fire it's really high.
It's almost like they don't have your best interest at heart.
It might be that Michael Reeves' channel got recommendation for you.
Yeah.
I think between Michael Reeves, Electro Boom, and to some extent Mythbusters and Colin Firth, maker contents just turn viewers into psychos. I find it very inspiring because do kind of want to give the people what they want, but at the same time, I value my personal safety. Got some interesting questions in comments. Someone asked, "Am I inspired by the MIT cyborgs?" And the answer is yes. like a heads up, like building a wearable computer got me into making stuff in the first place, and I read everything I could find on it. And a lot of that stuff came out of like MIT. There was the Mithril project. There's Lady Adafruit showed up in a few of that. And like somebody who kind of pioneered that there was Thad Starner, who's now a professor, and he left a comment on one of my videos, and I have literally never been starstruck before in my life. But there it was. Like the guy who was actually a full-time cyborg for like most of his adult life, like left a comment on my video. That's how I knew I made it.
That's cool.
But
Nice.
it is definitely important to know what projects other people have built, both not both, like hobby projects and academic projects, as well as patent projects. You can you can reproduce stuff you see in a patent. It's totally legal. So like I think it's important to know what came before, so you can move faster. I think speed is the most important factor in a project.
Do you have the time to research before you do anything on your schedule?
I have to. I don't have any time to There's no time for do-overs. So I have to have a good idea that the path I'm taking is the perfect one. So for instance, for building this project, I spent probably an entire day or two just researching different types of magnetic sensors so I could find one that would fit the bill. Like played around with clamp sensors, did the math on a Rogowski coil, just did a ton of research. You really have to have an idea not only of how well it's going to work, but also how easy it is to implement. Like I think it's a Rogowski coil. It's another type of magnetic sensor that's probably better for this. There's someone actually commented on my video, an open hardware current sensor for your oscilloscope, right? You just like put it over the trace and it measures it, sort of like what this does, but on an oscilloscope. And that would be that's exactly what I was looking for. But the math required, no way I'm doing that in a day.
Yeah, right. So you look for there to be like a library or something that makes it easy to.
Yeah, and the sensor itself should just be intrinsically like stable and well thought through. This is a lot easier now than like when I got started, because there's so many highly integrated sensors. Like now if you're using something like an IMU, right, you don't even need to do your own motion fusion because many of them have they have filtering and fusion built right into the chip itself. You don't have to do any math. You just pull out your compass direction and your heading, or your inclination, whatever it is. Anyways, yeah, it's kind of neat. But got some bigger projects coming up.
How do you stay motivated to keep these going at such a pace? Like I work on a project and I have so much figuring out to do that I'll spend 2 weeks sorting out what I'm going to do before I can even start working on it. And then it'll take me another 6 weeks just to get it finished. And then I am wiped out by the time I'm done with 2 months of working on something. And it's I don't want to work on anything for weeks after that. So how do you keep this going like this?
This is actually what my next episode is going to be about. Oh, spoilers. So I don't start working on a project until I've had a lot of time to think it through. I kind of I feel like every creative person comes up with a lot of ideas, and I just kind of let them percolate in there, collecting, just sort of stewing until the right opportunity comes along. So in this case, right, for this project, I entered this Hackster.io contest, and I had to build something really fast, and I realized that I forgot that there was another Saturday in January, so I needed a video right now. And I've had this idea for a while about sensing current, so stick them all together. So it's just kind of waiting for the needle to thread. I think the main way to stay motivated when you're building a project is you can't. This is going to sound really stupid, but you can't get demotivated. You have to finish a project as rapidly as possible because your enthusiasm is going to fade. If I hit a brick wall, right, first thing I'm thinking is, can I cut this feature? Can I backtrack? Can I try a different approach? Like I can't, like, you just do not bash your head against something. If a problem's too hard to solve, just try to find a different problem. I think another thing that causes people to lose motivation in a project is a lot of makers get into a bad habit of trading time for money, right? Like doing things like overcomplicate, like using a 555 timer when a microcontroller would work, or doing a bunch of math instead of buying an off-the-shelf evaluation board that does it for you. Or like simply ordering parts from overseas, instead of having them overnighted. And when you're building a project, you have to keep the momentum going, because even if you don't get demotivated by lack of progress, like, life will get in the way. And I think a lot of folks basically, like, they allow their projects to capsize in return for saving like $30. So I think, like, just doing what it takes to slam the door on the project now. Final thing is, I only have 2 projects going at a time. If I have two projects going and there's a pressing need to do something else, I scrap one of them. I don't believe a person can keep track of more than 2 projects at once.
This is interesting because, like, your approach and philosophy is maybe the exact opposite of mine in every way. And that, like, I have like dozens of projects going at any one time, because, like, I'll work on one and then it's like I get bored or frustrated, or I have to wait for like 2 weeks for something to come. And then it's like, well, they get very fractal. It's like I'm working on one and it's like, all right, I need to take a break from that one. So I move to the next project and I work on that one until, like, I get stuck on that one. And then I move to the next project. And then, like, 5 projects deep, like, my parts for the first project arrive and then I'm back on that one. But I end up with, like, my whole house cluttered with junk because I'm working on all these things all at the same time, all in various states of, like, non-completion. And they all eventually get done unless I realize partway through I hate them for some reason. But which happens.
There is a caveat to this that might help, in that I'm not counting things like just where I'm like just investigating something or testing it as a project. For instance, like I bought a sensor, right? Like I bought a touchless sensor, so it detects the proximity of your hand to it, and like I just hooked up to an Arduino and visualized it, and like that was just that wasn't a project. That was just to see whether the project was worth building. And I think those are good ways to fill gaps. But honestly, like, every person has so many things. Everyone's got so many things in their life that they need to, like, that can fill gaps of time. Like, if I somehow manage to get all my projects off the table and the video is shipped, and I've talked to all the sponsors, and I've dealt I've thanked the patrons and hung out in the Discord and all that crap, like, then I have to, like, I don't know, clean the refrigerator or something. My computer actually needs a bunch of maintenance.
Well, but Emily, what you're talking about, the difference between what you're talking about, you two, it's not I think it's like what you're calling working on the project, right? It's like you're saying it's taking weeks. Well, if you have all these different fires going, you're not actually working on 12 different things at once. You are only working at 1 or 2 things at once, and the others have been, like, put on pause. I allow myself to put projects on pause and put them in a box. And, like, projects, what I'm talking about, projects are more like experiments, like Zach is saying, like the start of a project, the nugget of an idea, and then I'll, like, pull it out later. I have projects that have been on my list for years. I wanted to make a holder for a prism. It sat on my list for like 3 years before I actually did it, and then I did it. And I don't think it took me 3 years to make the project. It only took me 1 week to make the project.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Like, my 2 months on a project are not like a full 2 months. It's probably like, if I condensed it down, it'd be like 2 weeks. Yeah, I don't know how to, like, cut off the, like, well, I'm sitting here thinking on the couch about this for like 4 hours and not coming up with any ideas. Like, does that count as working on it? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, if your planning now prevents problems in the future, like, yes. But that said, like, you can't. It's really easy to fall into traps of, there's analysis paralysis, but I think there's also insecurity paralysis, which is something that I struggled with before I started the YouTube channel, which is like thinking, oh, the project is not good enough to be released. Like, I think it's important just to recognize when those patterns are happening and just push the button on whatever happens to be there.
Yeah.
You are not intimidated by your subscriber count now? So did it change when you started?
Building.
Yeah, but did it change your perception of what is worth to show or what not?
So, partially, in certain ways. First, but the important part is like I can't allow. What's the way of saying it? I can't allow this to like kind of change me or the things I'm making because it's what people like, right? Like if people are subscribing because they want to see more, and I'm like, hey, I'm doing giant projects now that are 5-parters. I'm gonna make a mech suit. People will be like, I didn't come here for another hacksmith. I came here because I want to see like cyborgs and bad jokes. So I have to kind of, you got to stay true to the roots for just the way it works. But having the problem is that like I've heard that so the problem is like I have a bit of momentum right now, and I know it'll be hard to lose. Like it'll be hard if I lose it and I have to start over. So it's forced me. So before the plan was go slow, release a video, try every week, but every 2 weeks is fine. Just build up a nice back catalog of high quality videos. But now I'm like, crap, I have to jump my schedule ahead by like 8 months and start making stuff every week. So it's kind of changed the math a little.
Schedule yourself some vacations, Zach, so you don't burn out.
I at some point, I've come up. It's a way of saying it. As Brooke and I get better at like writing, shooting, cutting, and doing all that stuff, and as I get better at building projects fast, there's less on the plate. It gets more and more forgiving. Like there were times. I mean, the first video I did took like 2 straight. Like we were working for like 2 weeks, and we barely, eventually I had to be like, enough. We just have to ship this. But I don't know. Like the last 3 of the last 4 videos I made, like 2 of them we finished start to finish in only 4 days.
Who is we?
Oh, Brooke and I, the wife and I.
Oh, okay.
Whenever there's a camera pointed at me, not now, obviously, but whenever in one of my episodes there's a camera pointed at me, Brooke is behind the camera. And she is also the one who she's also basically does the first cut of the videos. And now for my Patreon, she's cutting together a blooper reel. Yeah, she likes to rag on me. So yeah, makes it fun. I think doing the stuff alone would be next to impossible. Oh, we have an excellent comment here. Anthony says, I think Zach puts too much pressure on a video being a whole project versus project update videos. All right. There are certain types of videos that I don't make. I never show code in videos, or when I don't show code in videos anymore, and I don't do multi-part project update videos. And on top of this, I forget the third thing. Basically, people say they want this, but the numbers prove that they don't. Things just, it's multi-part, like, yeah, the problem with the project update is that there's no story to it. Like people are going into the video knowing that like, I'm not going to get to see the end here. So like, it's very tempting to leave. And a lot of people they see code and they just assume like, oh, this is going to be boring, and just jump ship. So there are certain types of things I just don't put in my videos simply because I'm not convinced there's a way to do them without like, making everyone run away. It's interesting though, like
it's a little bit punished probably by the algorithm, even though all people might want to have the code there at some point if they need it, if they try to replicate
I also don't do how-to videos. I don't show anything step by step.
Okay, sure. Okay.
But I do put all the stuff up online. Eventually I try to get all my code, all my files, all of my instructions up on like GitHub or something, so that people who want to do that can dive deep and do things at their own pace. But I don't know, like there's certain types of things, like the problem with a walkthrough, right? Like the problem with like a how-to walkthrough or something is that there are going to be 2 kinds of people that watch it, right? You're going to have people who are using it as reference material, who they aren't going to want any jokes or anything. They want you to get to the point, show the thing as clear as possible, with good points to pause so that they can, keep track of it. Then you have people who have no intention of ever building the thing, who are just watching it for sheer entertainment, and they have no patience for any concessions you make for people using it as reference. So part of the fun.
Okay. We hope you don't burn out in half a year or something. That's like a most common YouTuber thing.
Weekly schedule is really tough. I did it for 3.5 years, and it burned me out hardcore.
Yeah, I started weekly, and then this year monthly, and not even that I'm able to keep up.
Well, we'll see how far I can go.
Yeah, we hope the best. Okay, Bleeptrack.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add to Zach is that I find it super interesting that you said that you didn't want to put magnet implants in your fingers because you were like frightened that you couldn't use the fingers anymore or something like that. That's the exact same thought I had, and I instead went with an NFC implant because I just wanted to have a cyborg-ish implant someday. For the people who don't know me, I really like to do generative art or stuff with procedural generation. And in 2020, I did my first PCB projects, and it ended up becoming these little nice PCBs. And they are all different, and these planets, they are capacitive touch buttons. And by the way, currently you can buy some on Tindy, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And because I had so much fun designing PCBs, I thought I could just do a little, Christmas project. And yeah, when it comes to Christmas and snow, I think there's one thing that is super nice for procedural generation, and that's snowflakes. So I went to make little snowflakes. Let's see if I can show that somehow to the camera. Oops. And they look something like that. And so basically I write a generator with some code. I use Paper.js for that. That's a nice JavaScript library that can output SVGs. And SVGs are super nice to get them to work with PCBs. And I can maybe take a quick look into that generator if I can share that browser. Let's see if that works. Looney, could you put that on the screen? Perfect. And that's what it looks like. So it's just, basically it's just a website, it's just JavaScript. And I wrote sort of a, let's say, a framework that outputs a certain type of SVG that I can open in Inkscape. And Inkscape has that super nice plugin called SVG to Shenzhen, which basically just generates nice KiCad files that I can then just open, export the Gerbers, and send that to a PCB manufacturer. And that's what I'm doing here. So I try to have a nice variety in shapes and forms, but I also wanted them to look similar. And this is usually like the golden goal of generative art, that you have a nice generative space, a huge generative space, but they all look like they belong to one series, or they somehow belong together. And with PCBs, it's super fun because you can play with all these different layers. So, for example, with this one, these purple shapes, they don't have anything on it. They don't have solder mask and also no copper. So they will just be the FR4 layer, and they will be a bit shine through. And the red lines, for example, these end up with a coating. I don't know for this one. What did I take? The silverish one. I think it was just HASL. I guess just solder lead. And the blue ones, the blue stripes, are what's it called? Screen printing, like just printed on top. And the gray ones, they are copper that is hidden below the solder mask. And that's also really nice because you can make a sort of a relief, or like a more tactile shape on the PCB. And if you want to try that out, I can later throw the link to the GitHub repository in the chat. So you can also, if you want, you can just play with that, or take parts of the code if you want to see how that SVG generation part works, because that's, for me, that's super neat. I don't have much steps. I can just save that snowflake with that crappy little button down there, and then open it in Inkscape and export the KiCad file, and from the KiCad file I can get the Gerbers. So this is still a pipeline that might be nice to automate one day, but there's no no huge steps besides, just opening it in another program and saving it in the correct file format. So this is the finished project that I wanted to show you. And then I have one, this is basically work in progress, so I can maybe share another part of the screen. Let's see if that works. I hope that works. Oh, perfect. So this is Blender. And so last year I did a lot of stuff with PCBs. And the one thing that I never really touched so far of all my generative work, like I use a lot of pen plotters and I use my CNC machine and PCBs and whatnot and laser cutters, but I never really went into 3D. And I did quite a search for what would be a nice tool for me to code procedural 3D objects. And of course, there's OpenSCAD, but to be honest, OpenSCAD is not so nice if you want to make organic forms. And there's also a tool called Lib5, which was quite nice, but also not the style of coding that I'm used to. So I ended up fiddling a bit around with Blender. And this is my current work in progress. So I want to print little figures. And I thought that snails would be super cute because they have cute, nice shells and they have cute forms and you can make them really, really sweet and cute. But I wanted to give it a nice twist. So my current project is called Cyber Snail, and I want to give them like a cyberpunk futuristic look. They should become like cute, some funky snails with, I don't know, maybe they get nice sunglasses and spikes on their shells and something. So this is my current generator to get the procedural snail shape. And what I found out is that snails don't just have a spiral on their shell, it's a logarithmic spiral. I wasn't aware of that before. So I implemented that, and now currently I give them like these ribbons, and later they will a lot of other stuff, I guess. And maybe I can delete. Oh God, I'm so new to Blender. It's a bit embarrassing to show. I can just maybe generate another one. Yeah, they don't look too different because I don't have too much randomized parameters currently. But if I could, for example, that's the wrong one, maybe change one of these parameters quickly and hope it still works and Blender won't crash. Exactly. So now it's more like a Nautilus shell. So it's super fun with these logarithmic spirals. They make really nice shapes, very organic shapes. So this is something I'm currently working on. And I bought this huge bottle of water-washable resin for the Sla printer. And I haven't printed so much on it. It's one of these super cheap ones, the Elegoo, I don't know, Mars or something. And I never used these water-washable ones. So I'm looking forward how this one works and see how it turns out. So this is what I'm currently doing.
That's cool. You say you are new to Blender, but already coding Python plugins for it. That's cool.
And you'll have all of your Christmas presents for next year all set. Resin Snowflakes.
Definitely, yeah. I sent these. I made really a huge bunch of them. I think it's 10 different designs, and each times 10 or 20 or something. And I sent them out to my patrons, which was really nice because they are like nice to send out. It's not super huge. And yeah, also to my students, because that was also really nice. I currently do a lecture at university about making an Arduino and stuff. And because of Corona, we have to do everything remotely, and we had to send them like care packages with an Arduino and then some boards and stuff out. So I had their addresses, and I thought like maybe officially I'm not allowed to use them. I don't know, but I just sent them out like little snowflake presents for Christmas, and they were really happy about that.
Oh, that's nice. I also taught remotely this semester.
Mm-hmm.
And only half of my students were local, and the other half were stayed wherever they lived. So like half of them were in China, and a couple of them are here. And I had one of my favorite things about teaching is it's in my top 20, giving parts to students. Like I have so many extra parts, and like just be like, I brought this for you. Do I need to pack? If you remember, maybe. And like, disseminating, or like I have like 8 rolls of copper tape here. And so like I was really missing this ability to offload. And also it comes from an ability to want to help. They're like, oh no, I ordered my supplies, but I ordered the wrong thing, or I broke my thing. And I'd be like, well, I have an extra right here. 2 times did I use my Vespa scooter to drive parts over to my student's house for a contactless drop off. I'd be like, it's in your mail slot.
When your
I
students
wish I could send them all something, but.
And your students stayed at home, did you have troubles with different time zones and stuff?
Yeah.
Or was that okay for you?
We got lucky that the 11 students I had this semester were split only over 3 time zones: New York, Shenzhen, and Korea. And had we had any in between, we might have had even more trouble. But because like Shenzhen and New York are 12 hours off, or they were before daylight savings time ended or began. What's early morning for me is late night for them, right? So we had class at 8 a.m. For me, it was 8 p.m. for them. So that's the time zone issue we had, is that I had to say good morning and good evening. But I think some of the other teachers in the program who had like the second year students, they were more like spread out across, they had some European time zones in there, and like, forget it, having class that's not at the middle of the night for somebody. So yeah, time zones was tough, especially for outside of class tutelage and stuff.
I'm not sure what your students come with, what background your students come, but mine, they usually have never touched hardware stuff before.
Right. Correct.
And so I just have to encourage them to put some wires together, because they're often so afraid to just burn something down also.
Yeah, for sure. I know I had to have, that was the hardest part, right? Like the no group workshop time was definitely the hardest for teaching Arduino, because you're right, that they won't lie, but they'll like sort of be like, yeah, I'm doing the homework. And then you find out like weeks later that they actually haven't plugged anything into their breadboard yet. They've only been using Tinkercad circuits. And so I'm like, I had them hold their breadboards up to the webcam during workshops. They'd be like, okay, everybody show me your blink that you made different.
We do the same thing. Every half an hour I said like, okay, we have a Discord server. And
we were on Slack,
post a photo of your current setup on Discord server so that everyone can see how it looks and compare it a bit and stuff, because otherwise there's no clue if they have trouble or not. Because in person, I can walk around and see, like, when there's stare on a blank screen for 10 minutes, I know something's wrong.
We had solder workshop hours where we work together and be like, okay, I'm going to play some music, and everybody's going to leave their webcams on their workbenches, and I'm going to rotate through whose video of soldering is the big one. And because there's no other way for me to, and then I'd be like, oh, hey, can I give you a tip? Like, because there's no way to teach soldering besides to like watch them do it and tell them what they're doing wrong.
Right.
So yeah, I found that challenging this semester, but also fun, because like, all this stuff is online too. So there's no excuse. It's like, you don't have the hardware, use Tinkercad circuits. You don't have there's all these resources. So, and electronics and making learning is a lot online already. I feel like if you're teaching something more hands-on, I took a remote watercolor class this semester. It's a little different. The supplies aren't already just available in a tutorial.
Great. Bleeptrack. Anything else?
I want to talk about your implant. When did you get it?
Yeah.
What do you use it for? And then I have one more question after that.
All right. I got it about 2 years ago, I think, in October 2018, I think it was. And I thought about that for years. And because I always thought that I would need to drive quite a distance to find someone who could implant it on me. But then I found out that just my a very local piercing studio could also do it. And they even had some on stock. So I just spontaneously went over and said, hi, I am interested in that. Can I do that? Yeah, if you have 10 minutes, we can do that now. And I don't have too much use cases for me, but the biggest one is that I can open doors at university. Because I know the person who does the administration of our entrance cards.
Oh,
and
right.
I can't
they added your card to it. Yeah,
exactly, because I can't clone the UUID, but he could add the UUID of my implant to the system. So I went into his office with a coffee and said, hey, how are you? What would happen if I put my hand on your reader and you press enter? And yeah, now I can open doors at university, which is really convenient. And that's my biggest use case.
That's awesome. I've been excited about the idea, but I have to get I got knee problems, and I worry what happens when you need an MRI. If you need an MRI, do you have to have it removed first?
So far, I don't think you have to, but I'm not 100% sure.
I've made a ring, RFID ring that you can wear, and also I've done the nail polish. But and I've had piercings, so I'm not afraid. I'm afraid of having to have it removed before having an MRI, like breaking my knee and then being like, sorry, I'll schedule that diagnostics for time after I schedule my piercing studio visit. Have it removed.
How much do you notice it's there?
I think, to be honest, I notice it a bit more than I think I would, because it's not in a perfect place. I'm not sure if I can stretch the skin. You might see where it is. Oh God, camera angles. Oh God, give me a second. I can figure that out. Can you see that little line there?
Yeah, I can see it.
But it's only that visible when I stretch my skin a lot. So usually it's not visible, and it's a bit too narrow to my thumb bone, to be honest. It should be a bit more on the skinny, flappy part there. And yeah, I think that maybe the piercer, in the hindsight, maybe was not the best decision, because he had a bit of trouble putting it in, but also maybe he had a bad day. I don't want to talk bad about him. And I can feel it sometimes when I when I move my finger like that and I stretch my fingers way back, it gets contact with the, oh God, what's the English word? Sehne, bitluni, help me.
Ribbon? No, I don't know.
Yeah, not a ribbon, like the... Sorry?
Ligament. You said ribbon?
Yeah, ligament. Yeah, like
tendon.
Tendon, I think that's the word. Like, it slightly can touch it. That's the moment where I can feel that it's there, but besides that, there's just... most of the time I totally forget about it. And I'm always happy if I'm at university and I think, I can open the door without searching for my university card for hours.
Yeah, you don't have to worry. I get locked out of my lab sometimes because I leave my ID in the lab. And then somebody on the comments says that it's okay in the MRI machine, and that Dangerous Things has a more complete write-up as to why it's not a problem.
One way to find
out. It might be different
with
the magnet implants. Not sure.
There's more than one way to find out, and I prefer the way that does not involve potentially hurting myself. You could also mess up the MRI machine. Probably not with a piece of metal that small, but
I have a basic question about this. So this is like RFID, and can someone steal it or read it out while close to your hand and use your ID?
Possibly, yes. So but the distance is quite short. So when I want to read it with my smartphone, I really have to more or less touch my hand so that it gets read. So I think I would notice it most of the time. But of course, you can build devices with more power to read it from.
But even then, they can just get the ID. But it's an order of magnitude more difficult to spoof it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same problem you have with regular RFID entrance cards. Like, I would never do some super high security stuff with that technology. That just doesn't make sense. It's a MyFair ultralight, so I'm not sure how. Yeah, it's just not super secure.
Project idea.
Pass balls on it. So
I got the perfect accessory to go with that. I bought these NFC powered these NFC powered nails, so you can make
project idea
because they'll go off when your phone is ringing.
Oh,
like the commercials for those are so funny. You're like the lady's like holding the phone, and like when the phone is ringing, the EMF is lighting up the head.
Yeah. There's also now implant techs that also light up when they come near to a reader, but mine can't. So I'm always a bit jealous of these new implants, because I think it would be way more fun to see it light up in the hand.
Yeah, I'm just afraid of it.
Maybe I have another hand, so I have another spot for another implant one day. I don't know.
Bleeptrack, when we meet, I will build a ring with an RFID reader, put it on my thumb, and then shake your hand.
We will shake hands.
After the pandemic.
Thing is, it's on my left hand, so shaking my left hand will be quite awkward.
Yeah, then I have to, for excuse, I have to put a drink or something in my right hand
Okay.
in the left one.
I will remember that.
Just casually.
I think handshakes are canceled. I'm never shaking anyone's hand.
Yeah.
Again.
We're going to fist bumps? Or are we just like going to look at each other?
I have not come up with what I will do instead. I feel like I still have some time. But I'm firmly anti-handshake now. Elbow bump, yeah. Or just a hi. Nice to see you.
It will also work with like an awkward fist bump. Like,
All right. Yeah, actually, that would, I guess, would be more or less the perfect spot to get it.
You can be one of those. No, you can do the. What? No, it doesn't work if it's on her hand. But you know the people who do they're shaking your hand and then they put the other hand on top of the.
All right, yeah.
Oh.
Extra nice shake.
I've been like.
grandma.
Confession time. I've been anti-handshake for a long time, and I'm using this as an opportunity to just make my opinion known to everyone because I feel like it's going to be more popular.
Yeah, it's the way to go currently. Okay.
Personally, I prefer a hug. You know, if I'm that close, if I want to touch someone at all, I'd prefer a hug to a handshake, and then usually I would prefer no physical contact.
So. It's my turn, I guess. I could switch the camera if I manage to find the right one. Oh, that's not showing. It's turned off probably. Let me switch again. Oh, yeah. There we are. Okay, so I recently... So how do I start? Okay, I got into 3D printing again. I took some sponsorships, some 3D printers as sponsorships to give away to public spaces, like a charity thing. And what I didn't knew when I started is how everything changed in the last year. So my only printer so far that was working, except for that one that I built and not using because the cooling fan fell off and it would melt itself because it's 3D printed, was the Prusa MK2. And now I switched to this ANET printer, and it has this feature where you can pause the print anytime and switch the filament. So that's like, you've probably seen these before. That's like a LED matrix, NeoPixel. You can buy these from eBay or AliExpress. And
let me blow your screen up.
Yes,
you're still tiny.
Okay, yeah. I'm overwhelmed with everything here. Oh yeah, much more space here. Okay. So I'm not sure if it shows well. I could maybe change. Yeah. Okay. So, so this is the first time I used this feature. I printed this in one go. So this is a semi-transparent part for the LEDs, and this is like opaque. And this was actually my first test, and it went right away quite nicely. It came out, it's opaque from the top, so you don't see like all the electronics inside, and the parts where the LEDs are is like semi-transparent and diffusing, and then down there's some more electronics and the microcontroller and so on.
Is this VOS mode?
Sorry?
Is this in VOS mode? Is this printed a single line?
No, it's not VOS mode. I think it's even the 2 or 3 wall thickness, like 2 or 3 layers. But I always print like 0.3 millimeters layer height because I'm not patient enough to wait and do it in great quality. But I don't think you can even see it on this resolution here. Yeah, and I was quite surprised that even the cheapest printers can do stuff like that, like switching filament and stuff. So this was a quite simple one. I can't turn it on right now because I used the microcontroller for the Christmas lights. a mock-up for the Christmas light for the Christmas tree upstairs. But I got another printer, and I had a live stream recently. That is an SLA printer, and I did some different stuff with that. Let me start with that here. So these are actually 3D printed lenses, and you can see it like here, like so. And I'm experimenting with transparent resin, and maybe it shows better like that.
Awesome.
Yeah, all the features.
Make like heads-up displays and stuff with that.
Yeah, so it's like very let's say, okay, this is so the printer that I'm reviewing, let's say at the moment, that I used is an LCD monochromatic LCD display. It's I think 2K display, and it can really print small features. It's like super teeny tiny. It's microscopic, and that's a difference to FDM, which I have used before all the time. But this is the first time I'm using SLA printers. So if you would like to print something like that on FDM printer, it simply wouldn't work. It isn't transparent. Even though you would use like a transparent filament. I can maybe show this as well. An example here. So this is a completely transparent filament. Okay, the layer height is also 0.3 millimeters. That printed 5 hours 30. And I have an example here with a transparent resin, and it's like a completely different thing. So, but to get it like this, it is quite a learning curve since this is my first attempt, and I washed it. And by washing it in like dirty IPA that I used before and not putting holes in the model, it split because it was heavy and not enough supports. And that's like a steep learning curve in different. So this is the same filament like this here. And by not washing it, just curing, you can get a like super transparent print.
It looks fantastic. It looks really great.
Yeah, it's really like
gorgeous.
It's like this LCD SLA printers. They print the whole layer at once. That print took 4.5 hours compared to the 5.5 hours of this one here, and you can't make out the pixels. Maybe if you, especially not the washed ones. If you take a closer look, you can see voxels like you get always the highest quality.
So is making your print optically clear like an advanced technique, or is it just a matter of finesse?
I don't know. I didn't check the internet, so I didn't do the research like you do. I just like to figure it out for myself in the beginning, and then people pointed out in the comments that plenty of people did that before. I checked shortly if there is some research on 3D printing lenses. This is one like a round one, and I did some mistakes. It was like this is like dripping here, and I also the mistake. Maybe you can see it. I turned it upside down, and then the resin was like it went down again, and you can see here. Yeah. So I try to perfect the procedure to print lenses like this, and this is something that came into my mind quite early, to print Fresnel lenses. So this isn't working right now. So it should be like maybe like this one here. and but this is only 19 layers, and it prints in 5 minutes.
Wow.
Like a lens like this, because you can print it like super flat. On the 1 layer takes 3 seconds on the printer, and I'm trying to make like Fresnel lenses 3D printed, so you can actually print a ton of these in a short period of time. So I've been experimenting with that right now, and I'm really like super fascinated with that stuff. Also, like the precision. If you're washing the print, you can get like super fine details and the high precision of prints. I get some stains there from the washing, because I use the same APA for every resin that I get, and it's a little bit dirty, but you get like super sharp corners if you wash the print. And I hope that helps me with one project that I announced earlier. So this is like a super basic version of my spectrometer. It's like a camera, ESP32 cam, and I took off the lens, so I can. This is like a 3D printed stuff. I can't take it off, otherwise I would probably rip off the ribbon cable. So the sensor is quite clear, and here are like some small slots where you put the diffraction grating. And what I took, because this is FDM printed, and there is some limitation on what you can print, like super fine slit or not. And I didn't have the SLA printer, so I took like, I maybe should use like Emily's trick to use razor blades, but I need something to like a super slim slit that's quite even to block all the light and get like a super thin light ray. And and I simply took like some plastic. This is from like a reel where there was ICs, and I just took scissors and cut a small slit so I can slide it in. But now I need to get some black resin, and I will be able to continue with the designs of like a super cheap, easy web enabled or like Wi-Fi enabled spectrometer that can be easily printed with an SLA printer, and maybe FDM if it's precise enough. So that's all I think I was currently doing. Now,
how'd you get that super fancy polka dot pattern on the back?
Oh, that's a hidden.
Show it to everyone.
So this is a special solder mark that you can select on JLC PCB.
You haven't seen the disco option when you're getting your PCBs manufactured, Zach?
I might have the green screen function still on from the last cast. Okay.
So that's what those at Osh Park After Dark were.
So I think your clear heart, I think it needs to be filled with some blood, and I have some bottles of fake blood, and I can give you a bottle of fake blood if you want to fill your heart with blood, because I think that would look pretty.
I'll give you a bottle of real blood.
Real blood too.
I got plenty.
Okay.
Do you celebrate Halloween in Germany? Because you could make a great haunted house with that thing.
True. Yeah. Like a fountain. There is an opening down there, and
so you put a little hose with a pump
and pump the blood out here, like pulsing.
It could be can make a bigger one, and it could be like a chocolate fountain. It could be red dyed white chocolate, or
yeah, true.
like a cheese fondue.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's all from me currently. And I didn't prepare a quiz. I must admit.
Shame on you.
I studied.
I cleared my schedule for this.
I studied for this quiz.
I'm sorry. I was like super busy. But since it's the first MakerCast of the year, we can do the New Year's resolution question. So what do you guys and gals plan, or what are your resolutions for this year regarding you personally, if you want to share, or regarding like making stuff? James, let's start with you.
Well, I'm going to finish that thing.
Finish?
Hopefully this year. But I want to do more projects that aren't related to that. I've got a whole little list of ideas, and that's just become all-consuming. It's taken probably 4 times longer than I intended to, mostly due to feature creep. And yeah, it would be nice to get it to a complete point. I mean, I'll keep working on it, but hit the goals of having display in some games and stuff like that. That'd be nice.
Okay. Cool. Emily, what's your New Year's resolution?
I don't typically make New Year's resolutions. I guess personally, we'll see when this is possible, but I would like to travel. I haven't gone traveling. Like I haven't gone anywhere this entire year. But I renewed my passport, and so I have a valid passport again. So like if we are ever allowed to leave the country again, I would like to go somewhere. I don't know where, but maybe Europe. I've never been to Europe, so we'll see.
Oh wow. You are welcome. We meet in Berlin when it's possible again.
Yeah. So that would be nice. Personally, or like project wise, I don't know. I don't typically like plan ahead on my projects so much, but I guess, I've had a couple of friends bug me in the past month. They like have sent me information about artist residency programs and said like, you should apply for this. And I never do apply for those things because I always feel like inadequate to like call myself an artist and like be an artist in residence anywhere. So I never do, but they've been bugging me, and I'm like, well, maybe I should just try and see what happens. So maybe I'll make a resolution to at least apply for a couple and see if anything pans out.
Totally do. Yeah.
Yeah, you deserve that.
Oh,
okay, Becky.
My next. Yeah. I also try not to make New Year's resolutions. I once made a really good one, and like I couldn't top it. So it was no more schlepping, and it was in 2014. Was no more schlepping, Becky. You have a lot of stuff to carry. Take a cab. Don't try to take it on the subway. No more schlepping. It's done me great since then. I get my groceries delivered. No like there's never been a better New Year's resolution than stop schlepping.
That's great. So you get to set a goal and be lazy at the same time.
Well, you know me, Zach. I got knee problems. I need the groceries delivered for a very concrete reason, and then on top of that, I'm lazy. But okay, so
$7, right?
I always have goals around like making more content, but I try to be really, kind to myself with my goals, right? So it's like make at least 12 videos. I think I did that this year, so that shouldn't be too hard to get. I did for the first time in more than a year, I have a full-length mirror in the house, and I think that's going to go against my New Year's resolution to stay fat. I got new clothes when my pants stopped fitting me. And so like for me to like, for those new pants to not fit me next year, like that's silly. So I'm going to keep my COVID-19, it's not quite COVID-19 until through 2021. And then I'll think about losing weight in 2022. I have one of Simone Yetch's motivational everyday calendars, right? The thing with the touchpads you can light up every time you do something that you told yourself you were going to do. It does not have any lights in November and December. So I try to be kind to myself and make a modest goal about improving the content that I have. I think I would like, if I say it out loud, does it mean it's not going to happen? I think I would like to try to take on a piece of sponsored content. I would like to do a sponsorship in 2021.
Okay,
Call me.
you probably have already some like proposals, or do you get proposals for sponsorships?
Usually not for stuff that I like or want to promote, but yes.
You could take the coffee company that was trying to get me to do sponsor stuff for them the other day, and I was like, no, like I'm not going to tweet that I like your coffee once a month to get free coffee.
Yeah, I won't do it for free product. And it's got to be a money sponsorship
Right,
deal.
right.
Although I do drink coffee, so in a way that is, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I told them, like, I drink like the shittiest, crappiest coffee, and like I drink it when it's like 2 days old. I'm not the right person for your fancy gourmet like IoT coffee service.
I make it on the pour over and then leave it on the counter room temp to drink. And I drink decaf, so no coffee company wants me anyway.
Some of these sponsors are like, I don't know what the hell they're thinking. Like, I got an email, like they want to give me a 3D print. They'll give me a 3D printer if I make an episode about it. The 3D printer is like $200. Like,
yeah,
come on.
What's your New Year's resolution, Zach?
My New Year's resolution is 4K. Haha. Because I got a 4K monochrome resin printer.
Awesome.
So yeah, so we're going to see this in a few episodes, and now I'm going to print some optics on it. I was kind of wondering what to make with it, but like if I can make optics, like I can upgrade the heads-up display, do all kinds of crazy stuff. I think this year.
Did you get that one sponsored?
This one, no. I had to buy this with my own filthy lucre. Although it will be used in a sponsored video. Kind of not a great profit margin on that one. Yeah, so I guess my resolution on the whole is there have been a lot of projects that I have been afraid to do using things that like just that seem too difficult or too impractical or anything for side projects, and things like resin printing, FPGAs, like vehicles, computer vision, and I want to try to build some projects using some of these more advanced. Parts and techniques. Now that I have like now that I'm full-time building crazy projects and showing them to people, like I got to take advantage of that and spread out a little.
Cool.
Hopefully my fears are misplaced and the FPGA isn't as diabolically difficult as it seems.
Okay. Sabine.
Well, we have January the 3rd here, so since 3 days I'm officially a freelance artist and I'm self-employed, I guess. Yay!
Congrats!
Thanks.
Congratulations.
So I guess my main New Year's resolution is not to starve and somehow get money. Yeah, but so far it looks good. I already have one at the end of last year. I got one. Yeah, contract is the wrong thing, but it's not a residency, but it's an art gig that I applied to, and they accepted my proposal, and I can do a nice artsy thing that will be an exhibition in the end of April. So it's a nice start, and I hope it goes well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Okay. My New Year's resolution is I want to travel again. That's the same for me. I want to go to SuperCon, and I want to go to Shenzhen, and I want to go everywhere, but not staying here in my basement.
I hope
That's my 2022 goal.
Yeah, I want to meet your guys. That would be so cool. Again, like it was so nice thinking back. 2019 it was SuperCon. It was so nice meeting some of you, and Berlin, Maker Fairs, all that stuff. I wish it comes back, and I'm the first one to vaccinate myself for that. Okay.
So if you can only go out and go to one place, go to one con, see one thing, which one is it?
One place. I'm allowed one place. I think I'd had to ask people who would be also allowed to go there. So I would just pick the the place where the most of my maker friends can meet. So I think I would take this, or I would go to Thailand and go to the beach. Yeah, that's basically all. Okay, we got almost 2 hours. It was a cool MakerCast. The next one is I think on Zach's channel. Zach, am I right?
It's been a little up in the air, but I'd like to give it a shot.
Yeah. I saw some discussions that you might host the next one. So, and also we have a new Twitter account for the MakerCast. It's the MakerCast. I think I also included it in my tweets. So if you simply follow that account, you will be always updated about the latest MakerCast news and also where the next MakerCast is. So follow that and check out all the channels and all the social media and support possibilities of the people in the description below. And check out the videos that all the people have released recently. I enjoyed them as well. And I thank you. Is there something else to add?
The email address, the email mailing list.
Oh,
rather.
mailing list.
Mailing list.
Can someone post it in?
Dave's been posting it in the chat. So you can also, if Twitter's not your thing, you can also sign up for the email list.
Yeah, so there's a mailing list.
I know we have a few people watching who this is their first MakerCast, but the MakerCast isn't on one channel. It moves between different Maker channels as different people host it. So the mailing list or the Twitter account is the only way to know what channel it's going to be on next.
Yeah, that's true. Or following all the people that are around here. Most of the time, everyone retweets, but it's the best way to find out. Okay, thank you, everybody. It was
for hosting.
Great MakerCast, and see you
Thanks
next time.
Thanks for hosting, Looney.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for being here.